What is up, everybody? Matt Parrino here, Syracuse.com, coming to you once again from One Bills Drive here in Orchard Park. Pretty big game across the way here at New Era Field on Sunday. The Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, two of the top teams in the AFC. I don't know if you would have predicted that going into the season, at least maybe not on the Bills side of things, but the excitement around this team, the excitement around this franchise has been building week after week after week, and now we are finally here ahead of a very, very big game, and I am going to bring in the biggest Bills fans out there. His name is Ariel Helwani, and I think he's going to be joining me right here in a moment. What's up, my man? And Ariel Helwani from ESPN. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are in here to see his bold predictions that I'm sure are coming down the way. You made some pretty big news this week. Before we get to any of that, I first want to say thank you so much for coming on. And it's been a tough go for you the last couple of years. Well, last couple of decades. The Knicks, we all know how bad the Knicks have been. Syracuse Hoops is off to its worst start in 50 years. Yes. And the Buffalo Bills are kind of saving you. Actually, it's like, now that I think about it, the Montreal Expos don't even exist anymore.
Yes.
There it is.
Always representing. Can you see me better now, by the way?
You're perfect now. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I would argue that the last 2 decades for me as a sports fan have been I would put these 2 decades up against any sports fan as far as like the worst 2 decades that you can experience as a fan. As you said, the Knicks are a laughing stock. They've been so for pretty much 20 years, except for that one playoff run, 2012, 2013. The Expos ceased to exist. As you mentioned, I mean, we did get Syracuse Hoops, the championship in 2003. The Bills made the playoffs for the first time in the 21st century just 2 years ago. And so there hasn't been a lot to be excited about. And that's why I may be going a little overboard with my excitement for this particular season and this particular team. It's just because I've been deprived. But by the way, I stand by everything that I said. I really do think that they're going to win the AFC East.
So this is the first time the Bills have been 9-3 since 1996, like you said. This is craziness in Western New York right here. I'm at the here every week in the grocery stores, in the supermarkets, at the shopping malls, Bills gear everywhere. I mean, this is always a Bills town, but right now, things are bubbling. What has you believing, if you will, Broadview?
Yeah. By the way, are you at like the Bills facility right now? Are you at the stadium?
Yes, I'm actually crunching in between practice, where we get to go out and watch practice, and then we're going to go in the locker room, probably about 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. I wish I could be there. First of all, I didn't expect this. First 2 games of the season on the road. I know it was against the Jets and Giants, but I thought that was a tough way to start the year. I did not expect them to win both of those games. I didn't expect the hot start. I didn't expect them to play so well against the Patriots. Really, actually, the Patriots loss, which was the first loss of the season, of course, was when I started to really, quote-unquote, believe that they were legit, because historically over this run, they have not played the Patriots very tough, and I can't wait for the game in a couple of weeks. But I feel like this is a team of character. I feel like Josh Allen is really coming into his own. I will admit I had some reservations about the draft pick. I was more of a Rosen guy, so I thought that maybe they made a mistake on that one, but so far I think it's working out. He does that. Like, I'm not going to say he's, the second coming of Jim Kelly just yet, but I like the way he is leading. I think that the way he played last Thursday on the big stage with a lot of people maybe seeing him for the first time, he really stepped up. He looked unflappable. He looked confident. He looked like a true quarterback, a true leader out there on the biggest stage possible. The defense has obviously been maybe the story of the year. They've been tremendous. When they got rid of Shady McCoy, I was wondering, where are we going with this? Okay, Singletary emerges. Frank Gore has been a nice story this year as well. And I really do believe in Sean McDermott. For example, I'm a big Knicks fan, and I think that the Knicks players don't believe in David Fizdale. And I think that's a problem. When you don't want to go to war for your coach, that is a problem. It feels like everyone on the team loves and respects Coach McDermott. They want to go to war for this guy. They want to go to war for Josh Allen. You could see that. You could see them. You could see that unity, that togetherness. And it's just fun to be a part of it. And I love the fact that no one's talking about them. I love the fact that they're sort of the most disrespected team in America, in my opinion. Everyone's like, look at their record. You know, they haven't beaten anyone, blah, blah. They're going to lose in the first round. I love that. I love all of that. I love that they're taking that on as part of their personality. I could go on and on. They're just a very likable team, and it's been a lot of fun to root for them.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you bring up Sean McDermott, because going into the season, I predicted 10 wins, and a lot of that was based on my belief in what Sean McDermott could do as a head coach. I was talking to Cole Beasley in the locker room after the Dallas Cowboys game, and he told me that the unselfish nature of this team starts at the top. When you have a bunch of millionaires, 53 to 70 millionaires in a locker room, and the unselfish kind of line is set by your head coach, I think that changes the dynamic of everything in that room. They all talk about it. They play for each other. And that starts it from Josh Allen, the quarterback that everybody's been talking about in town. He's kind of the most unselfish guy, good teammate, that kind of thing that you can ask for. And so I think you're right on the money with that. It's a great point. I wanted to ask you, though, you travel the world covering MMA. When you tell people you're a Bills fan, what are some of the responses that you've gotten over the years?
The main one is that I get from a lot of people like, wow, I didn't know that you were part of Bills Mafia. And I feel like I've talked about it enough these days, but I guess, it just sort of flies on the radar. I mean, I try to stick to, what people are following me for and what they're listening to me for or watching me for. But you get a lot of people who are very excited because it feels like we're part of this fraternity, right? We've all been through so much together, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of downs, some ups, and people get really excited when they find out that there's another Bills fan, especially someone who is not from Western New York. And the first question I get is, why are you a Bills fan? And so I'll explain why I'm a Bills fan, because I'm from Montreal. And when I was growing up, I was growing up in the era of obviously Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and Bruce Smith and the 4 Super Bowls. And the game of the week that we would usually get, like the designated home team, is probably different now in Montreal because of the Patriots and whatnot. It was the Bills. And so I was exposed to a lot of their games. This is long before Red Zone and whatnot. So I would get to see a lot of those games. And I truly fell in love with the team when I was 8 years old. And I watched Super Bowl against the Giants, and I saw the heartbreak, Scott Norwood, all that. And I just felt so bad for them that they would lose that way, because they were the favorites going into that game. And I think everyone thought that they were going to win. I think it was a touchdown. The line was set at, and that's when I fell in love with them. I've always rooted for the underdog. I've always rooted for the guys who, everyone was rooting against or counting out. And it just so happened that my entire family loved the Cowboys. And so you can imagine the last 2 Super Bowls were an absolute nightmare for me, but I loved being on that island by myself, rooting for these guys, the sort of blue collar, hard hat, lunch pail type of guys. I loved Thurman Thomas, probably my favorite player of all time. All time. Bruce Smith had the jerseys, everything. I just loved everything that they were about. Marv Levy actually was a former head coach of the Montreal Alouettes, the CFL team in Montreal. So I felt a connection to him. He was Jewish. I am Jewish. So there was just a lot there that I loved about the team, and I will forever be a Bills fan through all the ups and downs.
So you went to Syracuse. How many Bills games have you been to at the stadium?
You want to know something? Honestly, I've never been to a home game.
Wow. So this is going to be a big story when this finally does happen. And I have to tell you, when you do come, have you seen the videos of Pinto Ron, who gets the ketchup and mustard squirted on him?
Yeah.
That's where you got to go. That is the premier tailgate destination. I'm sure they'll take care of you. And that will be a fun story to cover, because you'll get the whole experience, not only the game and the atmosphere, but the tailgating, which is obviously, legendary. Yes,
I've been to the Meadowlands a couple times to see them against the Giants and the Jets. I've never had the opportunity. The first time actually that I went to at Orchard Park, Rich Stadium, was when the UFC was in town a couple years ago. I believe you were there as well, right? That was a big deal for you. UFC 210, Rumble Johnson against Daniel Cormier. That was the first time I was very excited to fight. That was the first time I was ever in the city of Buffalo. And so that was a really exciting thing. I bought my kids a ton of memorabilia, shirts, balls, all that stuff. And so I'm waiting. I just want to say one thing, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this. I feel like we need to evolve. I'm not against the notion of Bills Mafia. And Bills Mafia, to me, was born in this era where we were kind of, I don't want to say the laughingstock, but at times the butt of the joke. Bills Mafia wasn't necessarily a thing during those Super Bowl teams. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see us at some point evolve from being the butt of the joke, acting a little crazy, jumping through tables and whatnot, and start to act like, you know what? We are one of the elite teams. and organizations and franchises in this league. Like, it was cool when we were sort of finding ourselves and going through those lean years. But can I make a suggestion that maybe we evolve a little bit and no longer treat ourselves as the butt of the joke? Will I get heat for saying something like that?
I don't think so, because if you go back through time, and I'm a little bit older, so I was, growing up here during the Super Bowl era, it was the 12th man before it was Bills Mafia. And
Right.
Back in that time, it was just like you mentioned, that kind of hard-nosed blue chip type of, bring your lunch pail to work type of feeling. Now out there, I mean, depending on which tailgate you go to, you can see people flying into tables. But I will say, there is a portion of the fan base that doesn't participate in a lot of that debauchery. A lot of people know how to have fun and put it in its proper context. And I will say, too, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the table crashing, I don't feel like that's been as prevalent as in years past. But I will
agree.
say the one this year where I think it was in Nashville when the guy went flying off of the curb and almost like he landed face first. Yeah, let's stop all that. I agree with you there.
Yes, because I think that for a while, the Bills as an organization were just kind of known as the team that had the crazy fans. And I would like for that, there was a time where the Bills were like, the Spurs of the NFL, right? Like, they were the class organization, 4 straight Super Bowls. And I remember towards the end, everyone's like, oh, not this again. They're going to screw it up again. But man, I mean, they were an unbelievable franchise. I don't know if that will ever happen. 4 straight Super Bowls, wins or losses, I don't care. 4 straight Super Bowls is an amazing thing. And so I want to go back to that. Of course, we have to work on getting a playoff victory, first things first. But I just want to go back to that when we were, we were viewed as the gold standard in this league. And I think that we are trending in that direction finally after all these years.
I want to talk about 2 more things. Baltimore, obviously, coming up here, the biggest game. I mean, really, the last week was such a huge, like, all eyes on Bills Mafia type of game. But this one feels a little bit different in the sense that it's the number 1 team in the AFC where you could really earn some respect. But before we get to that, famous people in sports, you've met a lot of them in MMA and now at ESPN and other sports. Who are the most famous or notable Bills fans that you've met?
Okay, there's only one that I can mention right off the top, and it would be a crime if I don't mention this man. I have never met a bigger Bills fan in my life than Mark Henry. And I'm not talking about sexual chocolate. I'm talking about Mark Henry, the striking coach for the likes of Frankie Edgar and Eddie Alvarez, Zabit Magomed Sharipov, Lance Palmer, list goes on and on. You may not be familiar with him, but this man is one of the best MMA coaches on the planet. I don't know if you know this about Mark, but Die Hard is putting it lightly. In fact, his son, Pino, sends me videos during the games. He's secretly recording his dad reacting to moments throughout the game, and he's just absolutely losing his mind. He is wearing Bills gear from head to toe. He has a whole room devoted to Bills memorabilia. This man, like, lives and dies. In fact, listen to this. When you need to talk to him. You need to have him on one of these. And I told them I was doing this, and they were very excited, and so I think somewhat jealous that I was doing this today. But we have like a little group text during the games. We talk to each other. So Sundays, he's often flying home from a fight, right? He will delete all his sports apps off his phone, keep his phone on airplane mode, no notifications, text, anything, and get home, even if he's coming from Moscow, Korea, wherever, Japan, get home and watch the game beginning to end, not fast forward through things. Even if it's, like 9 p.m., the game is long over, and his son, like, this happened a couple weeks ago. Which game was it? Where it happened just a couple of weeks ago. We were texting, and they lost an absolute heartbreaker. Which game was it? Cleveland. Yes, Cleveland. They lost a heartbreaker, and he's texting me updates, and he's like, he has no idea what's about to come, and the poor guy's watching this at 9 p.m. So Mark Henry, shout out to you. He's the biggest Bills fan of all time, and you would have a blast talking to him because the man can, like, spit out Bills facts and knowledge. He actually calls Sirius Radio to talk to Vic Carucci every week on I think NFL Network, and goes on like these long rants and tells me beforehand so I can listen to it. He's amazing. So he's the one and only that I can mention. Yeah.
So what's amazing about that is I've probably interviewed Mark Henry probably a handful of times. Obviously super close with Tom Gerbasi, my old partner in crime over at the UFC. I never knew that, but I think when we do this with Mark, I'm going to have Vic Carucci in the room sitting next to me, so we can kind of do like a little bit of everything, because Vic's one of my guys.
He will
That's
freak
awesome.
out.
Okay, so Baltimore. Before I
Yeah.
let you get out of here, we're so grateful for you giving your time today. This is a big game. The Ravens are coming in here. Obviously, all the hype is on this offense of Lamar Jackson, but also this defense is pretty good as well. So going into this game, where's your confidence level at the Bills can maybe not take care of business, but be competitive in this game?
I'm nervous. I will admit that I'm nervous for a couple reasons. The spotlight is now on them, right? They can't really, sneak through the back door. Everyone's talking about them after Thanksgiving. The Patriots lost last week, so maybe now there's this hope that they can win the AFC East. I'm so impressed with Lamar Jackson. What a great story it's been. That whole team is on fire. They're playing great. I think that they're one of the top two teams in the AFC right now. And I'm very nervous about this. And I'm also wondering if, next week is the Sunday night flex game. I don't think they're going to look past Baltimore, but I just feel like there's a lot more pressure on their shoulders right now. Now, can they rise to the occasion? Can they win this game? Yes, but I will admit, if this game was maybe like before the Cowboys game, I would have felt a lot more confident going into it than, say, post the Cowboys game. Everyone's talking about them. I notice on television the new narrative is we need to talk about them more. We need to give them more love, more respect. And sometimes you have a bit of a hangover effect and you're feeling yourself a little too much. Now, I like the fact that they've had, 9 or so, by the time the game happens, 9-10 days to come down. Those couple extra days will help, I think, as opposed to it being a big Sunday game and then coming back on the Sunday or Thursday. But I am nervous because of, A, how good Lamar and the Ravens are playing these days, and B, just because it feels like historically, and maybe this will be the first proof that this is a new team and a new era. Historically, when we get really excited about these guys, when it seems like everyone is starting to watch them, we get, disappointed again. So these are I'm a perpetual pessimist, just for the record. So I'm always, thinking about the worst and hoping for the worst. And I am nervous about this one. Am I wrong? Should I feel otherwise?
At this point, I'm picking the Bills. I think this is a really hard spot for Baltimore, coming off of a really tough matchup against San Francisco, potential Super Bowl preview. They've won 8 in a row. It's hard to do that. This is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. This offense is going to score points on this Baltimore defense, which is really good. But that Dallas defense was really good last week. So I think if you could score 20 points with the chip this defense has on its shoulder. I mean, you had Micah Hyde, Jerry Hughes coming off the field after a dominant win over the Dallas Cowboys, screaming at the national media, saying, "We know that you picked against us. We're not going to forget this." So they're bringing that kind of energy into this game. So right now, on Thursday, we still got another day of media to go. I'm going with the Bills 24-17. I hope that provides you with some excitement and comfort.
What's the mood? Like, do you feel like they're feeling themselves? Are they buying their own hype, or are they as humble as before?
As humble as before. I mean, if you even try to get them going on a line of conversation that has to do with the future and not this game, this right here, right now, it's just been ingrained in them. And it goes back to McDermott. It goes to Brandon Beane and just the entire culture that they built here and how it floods down through all the positional coaches and the coordinators. And they have leaders in the room. They didn't have these guys last year. Just imagine what it means for Josh Allen to have 7 years of Cole Beasley, 6 years of John Brown, Mitch Morse, who's gone to the playoffs and was the center for Patrick Mahomes last year, Lee Smith, who's got a decade's worth of experience. There's just so much experience, and this defense already had all that. So I don't think that there's going to be any moments that they're not prepared for. They just might not be as good of a team as Baltimore, and that's okay. But I think that there's some advantages to playing this game here at this spot against this team.
Okay. I feel a little bit better now. By the way, shout out to my guy, Jonathan Feliciano, who's a big MMA fan who I've become buddies with on Twitter.
Awesome.
So that has been cool for me as a fan. And, I feel a tiny bit better. I guess I'm programmed to expect the worst when it comes to these things.
I understand that. And, I spent 5 years in the UFC. For those on the channel that don't know, obviously got to know Ariel a little bit. And one of the things that when I interact with Bills Mafia, a lot of MMA fans obviously always ask me about Conor McGregor, and there's a million questions in this thing here. Is Conor McGregor going to be the same Conor McGregor in 2020 when he comes back?
That is the $1 million question. I think that's what makes that fight on January 18th so interesting because I know some fans were upset about the matchup. They wanted to see him fight someone like Justin Gaethje or another top contender. But I think taking a step back, fighting a tough guy like Cerrone, he's very game, winning his fighter in UFC history, most bonuses. I mean, the guy has seen it done it all. But historically, it doesn't come up big in the big fight. Taking a step back, getting this fight, maybe getting a victory, a nice victory, a showcase victory, and getting your mojo back, your confidence back will go a long way. And so I don't know if we can actually truly – everyone is saying the right thing around him, but you know how it is in sports. They're always going to say best camp, never seen him so motivated, all that stuff. We'll only truly know once he's in there. Like when he was in there against Khabib, he didn't look like the same guy who was as focused and on point as in the past against Eddie Alvarez. He was one of the best fighters of all time when he was in that cage against Eddie. And so I think we'll only truly know the answer to that question on January 18th. I know that sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer, but I really do think it's the truth. And the good news is it's in a month and change. Like it's not one of those fights that we have to wait 4 months for. We're about to find out really, really soon whether or not he's back.
Awesome. You could find his work. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
What's the biggest difference covering a team, like being on a beat like this, as opposed to, covering a sport like mixed martial arts?
I think that number one, the fighters and the relationship between fighters and media is much different because in a way they need the media for what they're trying to accomplish. So they want to build their brand, they want to get their name out there, they want to stand out. Well, they need the stories and the videos and the articles and everything like that. Whereas in football, the popularity is built in with the NFL. So really, I can go in there and try to talk to Josh Allen, but it's not changing anything for him. He still has a job to do. He needs to go out there and win on Sunday. And fighters have to go out and win too. But I think it's just a little bit different. I do miss that aspect of it. I thought that I had, and it helped that I worked for the UFC, so I kind of had that built-in, relationship with a lot of guys. But I'm enjoying it. I mean, I grew up a Bills fan. This was the dream growing up, and and now I get to kind of have a little bit of a fandom. I was just down in Miami for the Dolphins game. Went over to Fort Lauderdale to Combat Club to watch Kamaru Usman train a little bit. It was amazing. It was something that I really didn't do a whole lot of in Vegas because I worked with the UFC and it was a little bit of a kind of a conflict of interest. I didn't want to go into certain guys' camps and whatnot. But Kamaru is a guy that I really, really enjoyed spending time with, got to know him, and kind of rooting for him in 2 weeks against Mr. Covington. But we'll keep that out of it for now.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it's fascinating to go from working for the promotion, but also covering an entire sport or an entire league, if you will, as opposed to just being a beat writer. And I know you do a lot more than writing, and I enjoy the coverage. I think the Bills press corps, by the way, does a phenomenal job of covering the team. I really enjoy. I have like my own little Bills feed on my Twitter page and on game days, and even throughout the week, it's just a lot of fun. Reading all your stuff, watching your stuff, the pregame stuff, the postgame stuff, the podcasts, and all that stuff. So keep it up, everyone over there, and hopefully one of these days I can actually go to a game and take it in person, bring my kids. That would be a dream. I would love to do that.
That is going to be an event. Ariel, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this run here as well as the rest of the Mafia. And you can find all of his work over on ESPN. He doesn't really need any extra burn here. Everybody knows who Ariel Helwani is. Thanks again, man.
Thank you so much. And remember, AFC East champs, we're coming. The first domino fell last week. This week, I'm taking your word for it. Patriots, we got them in a couple of weeks. We're doing this. Believe, Bills Mafia, believe.
There it is, guys. Take care.